MyMichelleLive podcast.
MyMichelleLive. MyMichelleLive. Sports Timeout. The fans, the field, the faith, the fun. Here's Michelle.
Hey folks, welcome to Friday. You made it to the end of the week, and we give you a special reward because we make it fun. We sports it up. I'm here with my buddies here, the round table of fellas I will introduce you to so you know who to email. Don't email me. I can't be responsible for these guys. Let me just give you a rundown of who we've got here. Now, we call him Encyclopedia Rich. He's an encyclopedia of all sports knowledge. He is a veteran sports reporter, and he is my friend, Encyclopedia Rich.
Encyclopedia Rich.
The encyclopedia.
Oh, what a guy! Matt Peel, he's the author of Athlete in the Game of Life. He will stretch you and strengthen you to be a better you. It is Matt Peel.
What a guy. What a guy. What a guy.
What a guy. And then we have with us sports reporter, sports photographer, author of Breaking Yesterday, a crazy, crazy good sci-fi book, Brent
Author,
R.
photographer, Brent R. Baker.
Yep, that's right.
Well,
So
what I want to know is,
Wow.
did he get a call from Netflix yet? That's what I want to know.
I turned him down.
And what I wanted to start with today is, well, the end of it all, the 2020 Olympics. Yes, the Olympics have now officially been closed out. Closing ceremonies happened this last week. And interestingly enough, I just wanted to say congratulations to the United States because we edged out China. We won it all. We took most medals, most gold medals. I want to give you the official count. Astoundingly, we had 113 medals. China had 88, and that's overall. We had 39 gold, 41 bronze, and 33 silver. Congratulations, USA. It was a good year for you. Did anyone see the closing ceremonies?
Yes, Michelle, and Johnny Weir's outfit was better than anything that they put on the screen.
So the closing ceremonies there hit the lowest viewership ever for NBC. The Tokyo Games actually face-planted to the worst results NBC has had since it started broadcasting the Summer Olympics back in Seoul, Korea. And for me,
1988, Michelle,
1988.
But you're close.
Thank you, Mr. Encyclopedia. So funny thing though, to me, watching the closing ceremonies it just felt like a frat party to me. You know, it's just like, hey, here we are. Let's get selfies. Let's make cute poses. And it was like, this, why would I watch this? And some of it was COVID protocol. Athletes were required to get out of here 48 hours after their event ended. So many of the big stars had already gone home. Frat party atmosphere, selfies, all of that. But as you mentioned, Rich, Johnny Weir was really the most interesting thing in the entire closing ceremonies. I'm showing a picture on the screen of his outfit, complete with bouffant hairdo and an Asian-inspired kind of an outfit. He has a lovely hairpiece that is fashioned out of something that is Olympic-esque and interesting.
Well, in all seriousness, I got to give him props because he seemed to be the only one that was really interested in what he was doing.
And yet,
because Tara Lipinski can't even look at the camera without staring off into space. And Terry Gannon, I don't know where he's He was. Gentlemen, get in on this. I don't want to seem like I'm bashing these guys, but it's a very easy target.
I think Michelle answered it for me when she says the lowest viewed, and my TV was not on. So
It's like,
there you
why
go.
watch it? There was nothing.
Why am I going to
entertaining.
watch something again without fans?
Yeah,
No desire.
I could go just about anywhere millennials hang out and see the exact same thing. People wandering around everywhere. There's a camera posing and taking selfies. You know, that's anywhere a millennial goes. You know, or Gen Z, I should say. Millennials are starting to grow up a little bit and they're reproducing, and they have more important things to think about. I wanted to mention
reproducing,
Johnny, because this was something that Jenna Elias had tweeted, #Woke Olympics closing ceremony. She said how appropriate and utterly embarrassing about his outfit. She tweeted this: bring back the days when boys cared about growing up to be actual men, biblical masculinity over woke fragility. And I just didn't think that was I mean, I'm all for what she said. Yeah, that's great. But applied to his costume, I mean, he's not wearing a dress.
He's actually wearing a toga, so it's actually appropriate if you consider the Olympic history of Roman times and so on and so forth. If you want to stretch it that far, it's entertainment. The closing ceremonies are entertainment. NBC's got to try to get something out of this, because they started doing makeup commercials halfway through the broadcast, because they averaged 15.6 or 15.7 million, depending on your news source, watching the Olympics every night, which is the lowest percentage of households since, I believe, 1998 in Nagano, which had 19.8 million. And of the 15 lowest rated nights in Olympic history as far as television coverage, Tokyo had 13 of them.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of reasons for the faceplant of viewership here. I mean, I think we certainly have all of the political stuff going on around it, the woke Olympics, as you mentioned. I also think NBC just, they understand that the way people watch sports are changing, but they spent so much time trying to drive people to their Peacock app and not telling you when things are on, when you could see them, where you could see them. And then when you did have the TV broadcasts in the evening, most of the time you already knew what had happened. So it was the way they produced it was worthless. Mm-hmm. So I really felt like the way they put this whole thing together.
There was a lot of hype where you saw other countries reporting. They got into personal stories that I thought were a little bit more interesting, that bring in a wider audience. And I think that they didn't always do a great job of explaining some of the sports. We've talked every week about some of the obscure sports that are fun to watch, the sports that maybe aren't the big ones here in the United States. They didn't always talk about how they score, what they're trying to do. So you had to try to learn as you go. That doesn't really build audience, in my opinion.
No, it doesn't, Michelle. And you've got to have that actual sport on the screen. And this is where it's a cooperation between the play-by-play announcer of the minor sport or not so very known sport and the color commentator of also said sport. That's the job of the color commentator of a in and make you familiar and make you knowledgeable so you will stay and watch that sport.
I think part of the problem with I mean, you're totally right. I think part of the reason why that didn't work so well is that the color commentators don't get a lot of chances to do this for that sport. So like, we actually really got into the archery, and I think it was Japan and Netherlands or something. And that, I felt they actually explained what was going on. But if you have a sport that's only on TV once every 4 years, your color commentators, it's not like, gymnastics, it gets widely viewed once every 4 years, but it's still, they have broadcasts on periodically every year, national and world championships and stuff. But things like archery or curling, where they're only broadcast every 4 years, I think you're running into a thing where, okay, you have an athlete where you know something, but you don't have experience sitting there in the booth and having to talk live about it. And I think that's where we run into some of the issues.
And in addition, they are so in the know. They're talking to a smaller audience. It's as though it's insular. So I know this so
they forget
well.
what their audience doesn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So your thoughts, Matt?
My thoughts were it was the most forgettable Olympics I've ever been not
It's easy to forget what you haven't watched.
Yeah. And when, again, it's just really disappointing for me because the Olympics are a true, it celebrates the athlete. All types of coordination levels, mobility, flexibility, strength, speed, everything that I enjoy about being an athlete. And I could care less about seeing any of it this, I would say this year, but this time. Plus, it's a year late.
What was it behind that?
Oh, there's that sneezing flu-y thing out there that they call COVID. That's why it was a year late.
So
NBC
it took your breath away
in
a bad way. It took all the air out. It deflated the Olympics, so to speak.
I think this is Matt's point. NBC did nothing to re-energize its audience prior to the fact that the Olympics were ramping up. They did nothing.
The only thing we heard about was, are they even going to happen? Right up until the week before the opening ceremonies.
We talked about
it going to happen. So
we talked about that on the show.
Yeah. So there's your 2 thumbs down from Siskel and Ebert on the Olympics for that. So how are you going to get excited if the only excitement is even going to happen?
Yeah, I think I lost my train of thought.
There you go.
But no, I didn't.
You must be working for NBC.
I remember talking to somebody like 3 days in. Oh, the Olympics are going on. So that's how bad it was. Is that after they started, people still didn't even know that they actually were happening.
Yeah, I guess that takes a little bit of the air out of it as well. I think the lack of fans de-energized it as well. They're playing to empty stadiums and there was no, it just takes a lot of that enthusiasm out of it. I guess that's where I want to talk about the fan experience. Matt, they're in Narlands where you're near. You're in Louisiana. My birth town is Narlands. Hello. But the mayor has now mandated a vaccine passport or 24-hour negative test for all indoor activities. And that's going to the stadium, going to a game. That I really get. But my gosh, bars, gyms, restaurants, man, that's going to require an awful lot of testing. And we also know that some of the testings, the main test venue in particular, is being canceled as of the end of this year because it gives too many false positives. So it just seems like a lot of mayhem. I want to get your thoughts on this.
I will never tell someone don't get or not get shot. That's up to you. I think that's the whole point. It's up to you. So the New Orleans area, especially our team, the Saints, are very regional. We're not like Seattle in a sense where most people, I'm going to go into this assumption, come from at least the state of Washington, like to watch or close to that area. The New Orleans Saints pull from Alabama. They pull from Mississippi. They pull from all over Louisiana, even pull in from Texas. People come into the games. So now you're talking, and the Panhandle of Florida. So now you're talking 4 different states that really draw to this team. That each state and each city now has different rules and different laws and cultures. So you're forcing even more now, and I get that from the far left standpoint, but you're forcing all these people who don't even live in the area. You have to now comply to this small, tiny box if you even want to come in to this game, or if you even want to come stay in the hotel. you think of all the revenue that comes in when people come in from out of town. They stay at hotels, they eat in the restaurants, they buy different things. So it's a huge moneymaker. And now you're really restricting that, I think, that flow of cash and tax dollars into the lifeblood of the economy.
One thing that I will say, having a test can be a little bit better than just saying you have to be vaccinated. You know, I've said it again and again on all of the My Michelle Live podcasts that anything that can result in death should never be forced on the public. It should be a choice. If I want to take that risk, that's completely up, should be completely up to me, not the government, and not people who are benefiting from it. Having had COVID, I was telling Matt before the show, the average person who gets vaccinated, and you can go and get an antibodies test. Your antibodies count is averaging about 50. That means you have some level of protection. Do you want to know after COVID what the test came back as? 16,500. So you know what? It's like I have super immunity or something. But I mentioned this, and I'm going to show this on the screen for our audience, that as far as testing, though, is concerned for COVID, not for antibodies, the CDC's RT-PCR test for SARS-CoV-2 is going to be withdrawn. The Food and Drug Administration is withdrawing their request for emergency use because it gives too many false positives. And by nature of this test, gentlemen, and this is really important when you think about how it affects players in the NFL. There was another case recently. I'm trying to remember who it was that came out. I'll get there. At any rate, there's too many false positives, and if the test is tweaked just right, you can find a molecule of COVID, and everyone, there's not any molecule of anything you wouldn't be able to find in your body. Doesn't mean that you have it. So I say all that in this long speech just to say there's some issues with testing, and it just continues to show that we are in absolute mayhem, guys. Absolute mayhem. I think it came to me, it was in the Yankees, I think it was Anthony Rizzo that tested positive this last week.
Yes.
Was that it?
Yes,
Okay.
it was. And there's all different kinds of different things. Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens is tested.
Oh, yes.
Tested twice for COVID. And Kirk Cousins is getting a bunch of flack for not getting vaccinated. But Lamar Jackson does not receive a lot of flack for the very same thing, not getting vaccinated. So
yeah, I know
the
that
reactions
Raul
and
Rui Diaz
all over the map.
Raul Rui Diaz of the Seattle Sounders supposedly had COVID twice, and now they're saying, yeah, it's likely people didn't have COVID. It's likely they were sick of something. They had some symptoms. They may have had the flu, but that they don't think that people can get it twice. What's really happening is this particular test just shows a lot of false positives. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And with the NFL having that new strict guidelines that if there's an outbreak in your team, the team that has the most unvaccinated are going to have to pay. Wow, how fair is that when we have all these breakout cases?
You know, one of the things that strikes me as interesting about all of this is that we've spent several years before the virus, not so much in the sports world, but politically talking about the importance of giving consent. And usually it's talking about in sexual terms, but basically that you have the right to decline to have someone treat your body in a way that you don't want to be treated. And now with this, where is the consent with these vaccine mandates?
Well, there's also the my body, my choice.
Yeah, well, it's the same kind of thing. But you're forcing a medical procedure upon me, which I might be much more willing to choose to do for myself if I weren't being told that I had to, or I was going to be consigned to a second rung of society, which is what's being created here. So yeah, so I guess
your kind ain't welcome here.
You don't want to get jabbed. You don't get to go to see the Hawks or the Saints or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it's a case of intellectual and moral superiority by a very few people. And that, if we look back at history, has always been dangerous.
This is a mic. Time to drop it. Nice job. You're right on, Rich. Totally right on. So, proof of vaccination or a negative test, I appreciate at least that there's that option for a negative test there in Louisiana, where we're not seeing that in other parts of the country, Matt. It's just like you're vaccinated or you're not welcome here. Your kind ain't welcome.
And again, just in New Orleans itself, which is also the parish or the county. The city of New Orleans and the county that is in are one and the same. The boundaries are exactly the same. So which is not really very big in geography. You step outside on the other side of the canal or across the street, you can do whatever you want. There are no mandates for anything.
And I'm not going to lie.
They're flying. People are leaving the city itself that live in the city to go other places to enjoy a bite to eat.
Yeah, and they will. Another fan experience thing that I wanted to talk about, guys. Did you know that while you were getting your stadium dog and your ice cold beer at the game, you can also do a little sports betting? Arizona Cardinals will become the first NFL team to announce plans for sports books at stadiums. Did you hear that story?
Yeah, BetMGM is licking their chops right now with a contract that they just signed with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, my question is, can the Arizona Cardinals learn how to play defense so that the Arizona fans can take advantage of the fact that they can bet on games at the sports book?
So what's going to be sold out, the sports book or the stadium?
Right.
Well, if you can't get into the stadium,
you'll get into a situation where you got fans betting against their own teams or cheering against their own teams because of the
based on the Cardinals' defense. I'd bet against them too.
Yeah,
all right, that happens every week in fantasy. You cheer against your own team. That's why I can't do fantasy sports. But
I try to set mine up a little differently so I don't get caught in those situations.
Well, what do you think about that? Do you think there's a place for that? I mean, it's happening anyway. Is it really a big problem? Is there a moral problem? Is there? I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I think the NFL finally is on the cash cow of that. That's why they're allowing it. Instead of trying
they
to
don't
fight
care about
it,
they don't care about the morality. It's all this.
Standards.
Okay.
Yeah, Matt, good point. Good point. Because to the NFL, basically, let's look at this. Let's go back to something you brought up just a second ago, fantasy sports. To the NFL, this is another example of fantasy sports. For the fans to interact and to get to know the players, get to know the product, the whole thing, be immersed in the experience. That's what it's all about.
Right. I mean,
immersed with your money for sure.
Yep.
Which it's not enough to. It would cost $700 to go to a game especially if you have a family. But now you can lose another $1,000 trying to get it back, right?
Hey, if I bet at the sports book, I want every hot dog free.
Right.
Good luck with that. Come on. But do you guys think there's a moral issue there or a danger? I mean,
no, none whatsoever.
Okay.
Well, as a Christian, Michelle, God provides for all of our needs. So I'm not going to throw away the money that God provided for my needs to enrich the NFL in a sports book.
Yeah, but you'll throw away the money to go and see a game. It's I guess for some, I get that gambling can be an addiction. For a lot of people, they'll set aside $100, $20, whatever. You go into a casino, $20 slot machine, $20 is gone. It's gone. You win, you don't. So for some, it's just entertainment, but is it? So that's going to be interesting to watch that debate play out. Talking about the players' experience as well, the NFL is going to strictly enforce taunting this season. as a point of emphasis for officials. So, trash
oh my God,
talk,
if they don't have enough to do
taunting,
already.
Right. I had posted this meme, guys, recently on my Facebook page, and it's two announcers in the booth at an NFL game. It's called the New NFL. It's not the knee. It appears his feelings have been hurt, and they've called the new 15-yard butt hurt penalty. The psychologist is attending him on the field right now. Is that what we're getting to?
I think we're all just speechless on that one, because the answer is that's sports. That's sports. So they've tried to do this at different times throughout the NFL history, taunting, and I get it. You don't want to. You're not going to stand over someone after you maybe knocked them unconscious with a hit, but it's too far. Too far. Where's a violin? Where's the smallest violin in the world, right?
The officials got better things to do with their time. Yeah. Maybe actually call a pass interference penalty that actually happens.
Hello.
Anyway, I mean, come on. I just, is taunting really part of the game? Does it really need to be? Can we just be nice to each other? Or is this just, come on, get over it? Harden your skin. I mean, we saw this in the Olympics where they were talking about mental health and Simone Biles, and I just can't handle it. Even Josh, who isn't with us today, was giving his millennial report and saying, well, I understand that, if she's not in the frame of mind, she could be hurt. You know what? Back in the day, I think it helped me, Encyclopedia Rich, Dorothy Hamill. I mean, she
1976
performed and did an astounding routine, and
I don't know what the specific injury was, but I know that she was not 100%, and all we have to do is go to 1996 and Carrie Strug in the vault. She barely could walk, and performed a vault that at that time, according to the scoring that they knew at that point, Bella Caroli and the team thought that she needed to perform. Carrie Strug thought that she needed to perform, and she went out there and basically, on torn ligaments, performed a vault that helped the team win the gold medal at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. I mean, so people make sacrifices all the time. Now, we understand that mental health is important, but not everything is mental health. This is my problem with this whole situation. Not everything is mental health, and too many people are drawing a broad brush, and that is also brushing over people who need real mental health and real assistance. And it's not... The twisties is not mental health. Tim Daggett explained what the twisties were on the broadcast, and there was no mention of mental health in his description whatsoever. And my wife, if she was here, would back me up on this. The twisties is a neurological, physical ailment that sometimes affects gymnasts. And Simone Biles, I'm just going to say it, had ample time to withdraw from the competition before any of this mess ever started. Because she talked about that morning, that day, prior to the competition, having issues. So she should have never been in that arena and gotten to that point.
Well,
is Russell Wilson, before y'all go to the Super Bowl, say, I'm really just need a hug today. I don't know if I can go out and play against Peyton Manning. My feelings, I'm feeling a little verklempt in the moment here.
Hey, can you do that when you go to work, Matt? Can you just call and say, I'm not feeling it today? You don't get paid.
The rent doesn't get paid.
I think with Russell, the bigger risk is that he'll get taunted after he gets sacked.
Oh, yes.
So,
then he's going to cry.
Well, then he might say something about getting tired of getting.
Bring on the psychologist on the.
We started off though, with the taunting in the NFL thing, and I mean, I think there are limitations. I remember the Miami Hurricanes teams back in the 80s.
Oh yeah,
to a whole different level, and that kind of stuff. that kind of stuff, I cross the line for me. But it's like, you play pickup basketball, you go wherever you go, it's like there is trash talk.
Hey, batter. I mean,
this is part of competition.
Since grade school.
That stuff is taken care of on the field, is what I'm going to say, Brent.
Yeah.
And we're going to see that this year when the Kraken start playing hockey. They take care of that kind of stuff.
Hockey, you know what? Hockey is the gold standard of suck it up. And I want to play off of what you just said in just a moment, but let me kind of end that idea with this. The deeper story to sports and the reason why a lot of us are so drawn to it is because of that struggle. It's not because I give up. It's not because I walked away. It's not because my feelings are hurt. It's not because some jerk in the stand makes a racial slur at me, which, is unconscionable. It's because I suck up and I play hard and I have something to look back at them and say, yeah, what you got to say now, right? It's about overcoming, and that's the inspiration there. But I wanted to say this about NHL. Did you know, just for those who are maybe new to MyMichelleLive all over the world, we have our roots in a broadcast that was on the air for years in the greater Seattle area, where it was an afternoon drive show. And now it's evolved to this worldwide platform. But once in a while, you'll hear some Seattle biases from a few of the people here on the round table.
Oh,
let me just
Yeah.
Cry me a river. But let me just
Thank
say,
you, Matt, for representing the rest of the world for us.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm
There
here
he
for
is,
you,
there he is.
World Wide Web. This is why I exist. Internet, I am for you.
Rich Hallstrom, off of what you said about the Seattle Kraken, which is the newest addition to the NHL, did you know they haven't even played a game yet, but they've already beat the Islanders? Do you know how?
I guess it's in jersey sales and merchandising.
I don't
I'm going
know
to
about
guess that.
That may be, but the Kraken, having not played a single game in the NHL, have more followers on Facebook than the Islanders. Kraken, 413,000 followers. The Islanders, 39,000. So there you go. And speaking of
It's
hockey,
the curse of Cuomo. It's the curse of Cuomo.
oh boy, yeah, resign away. Speaking of the NHL, though, the next season is going to be absolute mayhem because of the Winter Olympics, Rich.
Yes, they've got two plans in place. Plan A, NHL players are going to compete February 7th through February 22nd. But they haven't reached agreement on whether NHL players are going to play, so they have a plan B for the schedule. One real interesting fact is a lot of teams have already worked out their entire traveling plans for the year for the regular schedule. So if NHL players do not end up playing in the Olympics, then they've got to rework all of those plans because they will have an alternate schedule and vice versa.
Wait, I'm lost. Can you start over? Just kidding.
No, I'm not in politics. I can't babble on like that. So we'll just have to go with my explanation and just let things flow.
Just let it go. Let it go. It's crazy. So COVID's not going anywhere, and the craziness it's caused isn't going anywhere. This is the world as we know it now. Speaking of the world, there's a few soccer stories I wanted to take on. I am pretty excited. The U.S. men's national team had that Gold Cup win over Mexico. FIFA World Ranking, they're in the top 10. That's pretty exciting. And Leagues Cup is taking on a smaller part of the world. It's an annual soccer competition between clubs like Major League Soccer clubs and
Liga MX.
Yeah, Liga MX, and it's all North America. Well, this cup started in 2019 with 4 teams from from Liga, 4 teams from MLS. And it was kind of exciting to watch this week. I have a couple of questions, though. Okay, first of all, we have Sporting KC, New York City, Orlando, and Seattle representing MLS. And then we have Leon, Tigres, Pumas, and then where does Santos Laguna fit in? We need another cat, El Gatos or something. I mean, we have lions, tigers, pumas, oh my. Anyway, I just wanted to say, there's that Seattle connection again. Seattle was the only MLS team to actually win, and they had a pretty impressive home game with 3-0 over Tigres, so that was pretty cool. And
Michelle, I'm going to ask you a question. You think, is that the Sounders' best effort this year?
Oh, my gosh. Did you see the Sounders play the entire year? They have had spectacular start up until the last, 3 or 4 games. There's a lot of reasons for that. Nico Ladero is back, and that's all great. I just think it's shades of things to come. So it may be one of the best efforts. The best, I don't know. But another story is Lionel Messi is leaving Barcelona, and that was a big story as well.
Well, he's not going to be poor. PSG is going to put the green on the table, and I think he can afford to take us out to dinner for the next 50 to 100 years.
Well, he could afford to take us all on a trip around the world before he even signed this contract.
You think
and
he's
that's how much
offer?
money that guy makes.
Should we ask him about that?
Sure. Give him a call. Text him right now.
What do you think this contract does for the popularity of soccer internationally, and do you think it affects soccer in any way in the United States? Because all of the international leagues are now signing big contracts with the United States and have TV contracts. What do you think?
Well, I think
as far as League One really didn't get a lot of press. You pretty much have PSG, Monaco. You have 2 or 3 teams that win it every year. The league is not one of the stronger ones in Europe, and this really kind of continues to tilt it that way to where it continues to not be a strong league with just one team dominating. But I like the fact that, we can watch more leagues here in the United States more readily available than just on some obscure cable channels. As far as the dollars, they've always had big dollars over there. I don't think this dollar mark should really surprise anyone, nor does it really affect. They don't have a salary cap. I guess in La Liga they have that cap, but the other leagues don't necessarily have one. That's why you have such a disparity between the top and the bottom. Right.
You think PSG makes a U.S. tour next year and shows off Messi to North America?
He's been here with Barcelona, so it's not like he's never taken the tour when all these teams come over for their summer training camp. If they're allowed to, I absolutely think they come with Neymar and Messi on the same team, just like again Barcelona did. I think also.
Well, I'm going to put in. I
have no idea where that came from. It's just
PSG
out on me.
PSG versus the Sounders next year.
Yeah,
let's make it happen.
I went to go see games with
now.
I went to go see games when I lived in Los Angeles for a little while. I saw David Beckham's first game with Galaxy when they played against Chelsea. I'm a Chelsea fan. I've seen AC Milan. I've seen Real Madrid and the Los Galacticos, all against the Galaxy, and the Galaxy got their butts handed to them. But that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah, we're not going to get better.
You're going to the stadium to see these other guys, not the home team.
Yeah, we're not going to get better in the U.S. if we don't have real challenges. And
that's all part of U.S. soccer, taking U.S. soccer seriously.
Yep, boom, there you go. So, guys, I want to give a face-off kind of a thing. I'm going to play a soundbite from another sports show, and I thought it was kind of interesting. I don't know if you heard about Skip Bayless and Jenny Taft having a pretty heated exchange. Did you guys hear that story? Skip Bayless was commenting on Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy and his physical appearance because he's a big boy. He said he was a little heavy. He said that's not his preference for head coach in the NFL because it meant he couldn't motivate his players. Well, his co-host there, I guess Jenny Taft isn't really a co-host. She's more of the moderator, which tends to be this is setting up the story. It tends to be the way sports shows are. There's
Right.
one female,
But you
like
do a
here,
much better job than she does, Michelle. Let
but
me
I'm not a
throw that in
moderator.
there.
Well, let's talk about this. I'm a commentator as well.
You're an
so-
instigator.
I'm an instigator, and this is the MyMichelleLive show. So you don't have a lot of shows where there's a woman talking sports. Women have had to kind of break in, and it's been a slow ride, right? And I'm wondering if Jenny was a male, would he have treated her different? I'm going to show this to our listening and viewing audience. You guys can hear the audio. Here we go.
I don't think that's a fair shot.
Is
either.
everyone
That's my
who's a
opinion.
good coach as fit as you, Skip? I don't think that's a fair shot whatsoever.
I wouldn't want. I said it was a personal preference.
I've
And I
actually
wouldn't
had
want him
plenty
to
of
be my
coaches
head coach.
that have not had the
Yeah.
perfect ideal physique, including my college coach. So I don't think that's a fair shot.
Okay.
And I'm allowed to
Next.
have an opinion,
Yep.
Skip. I am allowed to say whatever I want to say on this show, as you do too. Bruce Broussard will join us and
Okay,
we'll
there
do
you go,
Westbrook's
guys.
comment, and maybe I'll have more to
That
say.
is kind of
Next.
what happened.
Yes.
Kind
I
of
don't-
just is that was that offensive to you? Was that just something that happens on? I mean, was he
It's Skip
dismissive?
Bayless. I mean, what?
It's just Skip Bayless,
So I'm not
right?
sure what.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that why anyone would expect like respectful behavior from him towards anyone. So I don't know. I would prefer if you're actually going to have a debate about something to actually debate instead of just blow someone off like that. That has a different,
yeah.
different
Okay.
opinion.
I'm sorry,
But-
Brent. Next. What?
Yeah.
Well,
You just
it's
did
all
that 'cause I'm
part.
a man.
We know that those. One of the things about those shows is that they are really heavily scripted and heavily. I'll just say heavily scripted.
That's our
And
problem. We
Skip-
barely know what we're going to talk about before we get on the air.
Oh
right?
no. Oh no, we're not going. We're not going there. That's why Rich does as good a job as he possibly can to
Yep.
send in
Without you,
ideas for
it
the
would
gang every
Free for all.
week. I want to show off our intelligent side so that we don't have to resort to Skip Bayless
We have
or
no script and no
Colin the
budget.
Coward every week. I mean, those shows are not meant to raise your sports IQ. If anything, they dumb down your sports IQ and they insult the sports world. I'll just flat out say it. I don't care if it's Skip Bayless. I don't care if it's Stephen A. Smith, who has a problem with certain people who have talks about certain coaches who have white privilege, but he has no problem with certain black coaches getting a help from a friend to get a job. We talked about that when Steve Nash got a job in the NBA. Stephen A. Smith was all over that. But if a brother helps out a brother, he's got no problem with that. But what do I know? Stephen A. Smith doesn't have any standards. Skip Bayless sometimes doesn't have any standards. So why are we paying attention to these guys when their shows aren't even that relevant or that entertaining?
Well, and for me, it's a matter of the perpetuation of females in sports reporting. Let Jenny talk. She's probably got something to say, but the tradition is you have a bunch of sports guys talking sports, and then you have one hot chick that's there that says, we're going to talk about this next. Right?
Well,
I
then
hate it.
Then ESPN needs to work on, and all these other sports networks really need to work on diversity. And
Oh, what? But they're woke. Shh.
I'm going to bring this up. ESPN started on September 9th, 1979 with anchor George Grant. And not to put myself in the spotlight, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Just get there. Spotlight.
How many play-by-play announcers has ESPN hired with a disability of any kind in their entire history? They did not hire a play-by-play announcer with a disability until 2016. Jason Jason Benetti, who also does Chicago White Sox play-by-play, Major League Baseball, and he also did some Olympics play-by-play for baseball, along with Eduardo Perez. He is the first one, not until 2016. Now, if ESPN is all hot for diversity, how come it took until 2016 for that to happen, but they have no problem talking about how racist America is and how sexist America is every week?
Well, diversity is only reserved for certain categories. So,
See, no, what it is moral convenience.
Agreed, Brett.
right.
Agreed.
And doing the right thing is not a convenience; it is a requirement. We have
Who gets the drop the mic award for the week?
We have to be better than this.
Good for you.
What do we call? What do we call? What do we do? If we think everyone is equal, then we must equally be at odds with anything that is against what God says. Against what God says, and promote what is right. That's why God's word says to lift people up. And that's why we're going to talk about the God story this week and every week on this show. We're encouraging people to run the race. You got to run the race. You got to run the race toward the goal.
I want to tell you, these are on My Michelle Live, our sports timeout. Run the race. Keep the faith.
Nice.
Looking good.
Yeah.
How come it's not on my doorstep?
Yeah, I don't know. Shipping and handling.
Maybe ESPN intercepted it because
I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because I think I ordered the wrong size for you, and then you said you needed a smaller size. I was like, with those muscles, are you sure? Okay. All right, fine. I'll take your word for it.
I'm kind of a Marge.
A Marge.
Kind of a Marge.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. No, they don't. NFL, welcome back. Oh, it's been a long year.
Oh my gosh.
Football. And then I want to welcome you to week 2 preseason games. And Steelers had a pretty handy win over the Cowboys. We had the Washington, the team formerly known as the Patriots.
The Washington Nobodies.
Yeah, there you go.
I still like to call them the X-Skins, but
so we're going to have some more games this evening.
Seahawks tomorrow night against the Raiders in Las Vegas.
Oh my gosh, guys!
Place your bets now.
So excited about football this year, and I think it's going to be an interesting one. But again, when we get into some of the weird stuff happening and controversy, there was Green Bay Packers wide receiver.
Oh my gosh, Devin Fungo, right?
Yeah, he was talking about how everyone looks with their masks on, and he made He created a faux pas. It just wasn't a cool thing to say at a press conference. So let me go ahead, put this up on the screen so you can watch him and see for yourself.
I like smiles and all that type of stuff. I can tell you smiling. I see the face. I can see the face mask. Everybody go tinky, and that's when I know it's 100%. It's all good.
It's been a while for you to be
here. Okay, so he's all chinky is what he said, and he was making reference to Asians, and it just wasn't.
Well, I never actually heard what he said in the article. It set that out, so I didn't know what he actually said.
I wanted to play it because you can't see it. You can't find it anywhere. They just said it was a slang. And, you just want to know, okay, was it? Or what really happened? So he used the word chinky, and he made and it was just,
Why even go there, man?
Yeah,
why even go there, man?
It's kind of silly. It's a stereotype. It's an outright stereotype, and it's not okay. And it was a racist remark, and by our standards of what racism is. But then again, we've had that conversation that black people can't be racist. So what does the media do with that? What does the woke community do with that, guys?
Well, I think that's the interesting question here, Michelle, because if you watch that clip, and I've seen that clip and I've seen other people talk about that clip, nobody in the press conference talked to him, said anything. They all sat there and watched that happen. Yeah. These same people who are telling people how to live, when to get a shot, when to say something, when not to say something, these same people sat there and they said nothing. And some of these people are the same people that stare at me when I'm in a wheelchair. I'll just say that too.
Yeah.
These guys are phonies.
Yeah, that's
true. They're phonies.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, one experience that I had with Rich at a press conference we were covering, they held their press conference up a hill in soggy grass. Now, how are you going to get a wheelchair up that? And so, Rich and I are trying to, make sure that he's maneuvered while the rest of the press just kind of walked aside and then stood in front of him, even though he was in the front row. That's the same press, and I think you've got a point there, Rich.
Yeah.
And next time, I wish you would tell me what you really think. Don't hold back. Yeah.
Oh, football season's coming, so Rich 2.0 will be here soon enough.
Any thoughts on week one,
That's
guys?
That's the shirt I want. I want a Rich 2.0 shirt.
Matt, what do you think about what I just said? Am I just making myself the whole story here, or am I?
Man, you are 1,000% correct. As we talk about diversity, right? Diversity is what they choose that they want to see as diverse. Diversity is really not about everybody, and making sure all disabilities, all races, everything like that is included. It's what sells. And if being anti-Asian doesn't sell, then they just kind of sweep that underneath the rug and let's move on, because that's not part of the current rhetoric that's out there.
Ooh,
selective outrage is what we do.
I'm going to bring this.
If there's something that's cool to be outraged about, you can make a lot of money just picking apart people who violate this specific standard. So again, we've seen it with some of the anti-Asian violence where you don't see listed. It's interesting when there's a crime, you see like the physical description of who perpetrated, who the suspects were. And oftentimes when an Asian person's been attacked, you don't find out who the race is of the person who did the attacking, because a lot of times they haven't been white. And so that doesn't fit the rhetoric. So Rich, to your point, I mean, I know you've dealt with it in other places too, like where you've been places where a press box is up a ladder and you don't, and that's where you need to be. And how are you supposed to get there? Stuff like that gets ignored because it's not cool. It's not profitable.
Not sexy. Sorry,
it's not
you're not sexy enough, apparently. Yeah. Only your wife thinks so.
Well, maybe we should have my wife on the show, and maybe she can talk about that.
She'll tell you. She'll set you straight. I know she will. Good for her. And anymore that's you're not making the story all about you anymore than I am, in saying there's a frustration in how women can be treated as reporters as well. So, to your point, Rich, the whole wokeness and self-congratulatory atmosphere that reporting, even in sports, conducts and for themselves is absolutely hypocritical when people like you and I look and say, wait a minute. Rich, you had sent a story, and this is just Rich's point too, for those of you who are listening. Rich is the man who keeps us all in check. He sends us reminders, he sends us stories. Here's some things to talk about. Love you for that, Rich. You do keep us in line. But you sent a story about the WBA,
the World Boxing Association, for our fans out there who might not know that acronym. Go ahead, Michelle.
They sent out a suspension to Judge Gloria Martinez Rizzo, and it had to do with racist tweets.
Well, actually, scoring and racist tweets recently. Let's talk about the first part of this. They had a boxing match recently on Fox for the interim welterweight championship, and she sent in a very unusual scorecard, let's say, that really did not reflect the flow of the action, is the best way that I can put it. So the head of the WBA and some of the other judges and some of the other people involved in administration said that doesn't look too good. And so we're going to put this decision aside. And then they conveniently also found in a Twitter account from 2020 racist tweets. Now, what I want to know about this, if that was her account in 2020, why weren't you looking at that account in 2020? People's Twitter accounts just don't magically appear and disappear or fall on the floor. Matt, this is another bad look for boxing. Boxing looks like a bunch of idiots with stuff like this.
They do, and that's why UFC is blowing by them in ratings and money and everything else out there. Boxing is kind of the old man's sport in a sense now. I didn't really, until you sent that story, I didn't know anything about it, but that's all exactly. UFC is plugged in. They've plugged into what's going on now, and boxing is not, and boxing is being left behind.
And UFC also has freedom of thought, politically, personally, spiritually, any way that you want to slice it. They pretty much have freedom of thought.
Yeah, I will say if you have scoring anomalies and somebody, I mean, this isn't like something from 2003 on MySpace. This is something from last year that she posted. It's like, so if you have bad scoring going on and you have somebody that's a year ago feeling bold enough to post racist tweets, you put those two together and you've got a real toxic mix.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with them to take it or out. Whatever's going on there, you don't want that kind of thing. I mean, imagine, it's boxing, so the people aren't talking about it. But if you had a prominent NFL official making racist tweets last year, and then you're seeing all sorts of weird flags thrown during games, there would be a lot more talk about it than
yes, there would. I got another question for you guys, and I'll go back to the subject Michelle brought up with Devin Funchess. I'm going to drop that bomb too here and ask this question as we get toward the end of the show. If Devin Funchess is white, is he still on the Green Bay Packers?
Ooh. Wow. Well, I thought about that as well.
No.
But
the answer is no. The answer is no.
Yeah, we'd be hearing a lot more. We'd be hearing a lot more about this. No joke. And that's where we're at right now. That's where we really need to examine the world and look at what's really happening and just go, come on, people. This is not okay.
That's why I said, why did he even go there, man?
Well,
why?
You know what? A sin is a sin, and we're all inclined to do it as we like to divide ourselves and demonize the other side. We don't really realize that we all suffer from a human condition, and that's really at the heart of finding the God story and a deeper hope. It's time for us to get to our final shot, guys.
Final shot.
Final shot, we go around the round table, bring out a subject, a person, a story that we just want to give a final look at, a final shout out for. We're going to start with Brent.
Boy, if you haven't watched the Field of Dreams game last night, you need to go back and watch that. If you're a baseball fan, especially if you watched the Field of Dreams movie, what the Yankees and White Sox, Major League Baseball, whatever the organization is that runs that whole thing in Iowa where they filmed the Field of Dreams movie, that was just an amazing thing. If you haven't watched it, they did an opening, which very much went back to the movie. They had Kevin Costner there with a bit of an overdramatic speech, but when you have the players coming out of the cornfield and the outfield onto the field before the introductions, it was just, there were chills for that. And then the game, they could not have scripted that better. When you have a 4-run comeback by one team in the top of the ninth to take the lead, and then another team, home runs into the cornfields in the outfield, walk off with fireworks, which is more like the natural than Field of Dreams. But, it was just, and I don't care about either of those teams. But it was just something, there was something magical about that we've not had a lot of in sports in recent years. So it was sort of the opposite of watching the Olympics, just really cool. So everyone involved with that, I even have to say Fox Sports, they nailed it pretty good too. So that was a lot of fun.
It helps when you concentrate on the game, actually.
Yeah.
And you actually really concentrate on the game.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Rich Hallstrom, final shot.
I am going to go back to the Olympics one more time for something great. Let's not overlook this. 7 straight gold medals by the USA women's basketball team.
Yeah, that's pretty spectacular.
Sue Bird wins 5. Diana Taurasi wins 5 gold medals. Last appearance for Sue Bird in an Olympic uniform. Dawn Staley deserves consideration. If Becky Hammon is considered for consideration for an NBA job, Dawn Staley deserves consideration for an NBA job because she's one of the best women's basketball coaches in America, period.
Matt
That's one of the best coaches, period.
Final shot.
My final shot is actually nothing to do with sports this time. 30 years ago today, Metallica released the Black Album. Like it or not like it, Metallica Black Album has really transformed music in rock and roll for a whole new generation and brought heavy metal. Maybe you love it, maybe you don't love it, but it transformed the way artists put out albums on top of that. So I remember I was 16 years old when I first was in the car listening to it. Ooh, here comes a new Metallica album. Here comes a new Metallica song. And they played Inner Sandman. And everyone knows that song of all ages. So 30 years ago today, Black Album.
Well, Lars Ulrich works for this show because he once thought about becoming a professional tennis player.
Well, there you go.
We're glad that he became a drummer instead.
There you go. My final shot kind of goes out to unity. There is a lot of brokenness in the United States. And there's a kind of a cool news story about Patrick Mahomes getting advice from Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, reaching out and saying, hey, even though he's already won a Super Bowl, how much advice do you need? He said, hey, you don't know. You don't realize we talk to each other. And he said, I just wanted to, get some advice. Someone who's been down the road. I love that story because of the unity. You're on different teams, you're competitors, but in the end, we're all playing the same game, right? And in America, we may be on different sides. We may be rooting for different teams, but in the end, we're all part of the same team. So that's where my shout out goes, and a shout out to my cohorts today, Brent Baker, Rich Hallstrom, Matt Peel. Thank you guys for joining us today. And thank you very much for making My Michelle Live part of your day. You can go to MyMichelleLive.com. When you go there, you can scroll to the bottom of the page. Now, I'm just going to show you. Super easy. Go to MyMichelleLive.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, past all the cool merch stuff that you can get, past the here's all of our podcasts you can listen to, past the, hey, find out more and about the show and even meet some of our guys with our contributors all the way to the bottom where you can sign up for our mailing list and be on the know. Make a difference. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being part of the show today. I love y'all.
Thanks, Michelle.
We'll catch you next time.
For more fun, go to MyMichelleLive.com.